Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Karleigh Darnay, and I will be your host for this evening as we have a thoughtful discussion about health, mental health, and among youth and family. I am joining you from Toronto, the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississauga of the Credit River. I am also a member of Garden River First Nation and work within the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health in the Child and Youth Program. So this topic is something that is very close and important to me. I am very honored that Sun Life has asked me to be your host for this great event that we have planned this evening, because over the past few years, even prior to the pandemic, Canada has been witnessing a mental health crisis. Our mental health is an essential part of our overall well-being. Mental health issues can impact any one of us. They don't discriminate. Tonight, we want to focus our attention on the mental health of our young people. The incidence of mental health concerns has grown fastest among young Canadians than any other age groups. The impact of the pandemic has accelerated this even more. And we all know when a young person is struggling with their mental health, it has a ripple effect on those closest to them. It's been just over a year since the pandemic was declared by the World Health Organization. And for all of us, this has brought many unique challenges, whether it's loneliness, concern for loved ones, struggling with school, financial pressures, or fear of contracting COVID-19. Many of us have also felt the whiplash of emotions, from getting through the first wave, to feeling optimistic about vaccines, to now entering a third wave in many parts of Canada. It's okay not to feel okay. This is emotionally tough for everyone. You may be reflecting on the past year and feeling like it was wasted, or that it has set you back. But tonight's event is intended to celebrate all of our resilience and growth. If that's hard to see now, we hope by the end of our 60 minutes together, you can start to appreciate just how resilient you are. This event is also to celebrate hope and optimism. In addition to the COVID-19 pandemic, we know that the world can at times seem like a confusing, disappointing place. Broadcast media, social media, and all the other means that exist today to help connect us can also feel overwhelming. But there is hope and optimism. Before we begin our conversation with each of the incredible panelists that we have here with us, I also want to highlight a few things for everyone attending. Due to the nature of our conversation, this can sometimes be an emotional or challenging event with topics that can be triggering. So please give yourself space to step back from the conversation if you find that you need to take a bit of a break during the event. We also have a number of resources linked in your screen that are available if you need more support for your mental health or the mental health of others in your life following the event. I also want to welcome everyone to use the chat throughout the event to engage in the conversation and ask any questions that you may have for our panelists. So to kick things off, we are very pleased to welcome Nick Nurse, head coach of the Toronto Raptors. In his very first season as head coach in 2019, Nick led the Toronto Raptors to their very first NBA championship. He is also the head coach of the Canadian men's national basketball team, and in 2020 was named the NBA's Coach of the Year. Combining his love of basketball and music, Nick started the Nick Nurse Foundation. The foundation provides a pathway to success by empowering children and young adults to achieve their full potential by leveling the playing field, by creating networks of support for families and communities. Please join me in giving a big welcome to Nick Nurse. Thank you, Nick, for joining us. So, Nick, I'm going to start off by asking you, as a leader, coach, and parent, what has your perspective been on the last year? And I think you are also muted, so if you want to unmute your microphone, you can join us.
This is my first Zoom call. Okay. First of all, thanks everybody. Welcome and thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. We're in Tampa, and I was just thinking about looking back over the last year and how much we miss Toronto and the normal activities of life for us, in Toronto. And just like everybody, I think for us, when the pandemic hit, it was a screeching halt to all of our normal lives, right? And that was the first thing we had to get over. And that was like, for us, in the fast pace, we're in a city and we play a game and we're in another city. We were in the middle of our season. We just returned home from a 5-game West Coast road trip, and just by chance happened to play the Utah Jazz on the last game of that road trip. And the first player, Rudy Gobert, from the Utah Jazz, contracted the virus. So we were actually at my foundation, the kickoff of my foundation dinner at the night when the news came out, and we all had to immediately go to the hospital and get tested because we were in close contact with him, a lot of the players playing against him and everybody there. But I think that, trying to put the whole year into perspective, it's certainly been, it's been long and it's been difficult, I think, for everyone. I think that from my standpoint, we've tried to kind of put things in compartments a little bit, that we have so many conversations with our staff, my staff, our organization staff, with our players, that have nothing to do with basketball or our jobs or improving or anything. That's kind of the world we live in, and that's what we get paid to do. But we're just more like, how's everybody doing? How's your family doing? How, just so many kind of like Zoom calls like this, where there was no business related topics. It was, what's anybody want to share? Let's express how we're feeling. Let's take care of each other. Let's make sure we're here for, even though we can't be physically there for you, we can't give you a hug or put our arm around you, we can do it virtually and be there as much as we can in that way. So I think there's a lot that went into the year. There's a lot more things I can share here later, but that's kind of what I would start with now. We're still here a little bit in that same scenario with we need a shoulder to lean on. We need an arm put around us. And even though we can't maybe do it, we can do the best we can and be even more active, on the phone or visually like we are here tonight.
I think that's such a interesting way of putting it. And I think a lot of people can probably relate, who are joining with us or who are here with us today too, in that despite all the challenges, I think for a lot of us, it's kind of pushed us to become closer around to those that we're connected with and those who are around us. So I definitely can relate to that. And it's interesting hearing it from your perspective too. So the other question that I have for you, Nick, is there anything over the past year that you've learned about yourself during the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things. And one, I think it made it a real challenge to kind of show gratitude and be appreciative for all the good things that you do have in your life, if you're fortunate enough to have those. I know I got invaluable time at home with my family that I would have never gotten. I would have been crisscrossing the country, and even though we couldn't go home, it was a joy. You make it a focus of being able to spend time. I have two young boys, and that's time I was rewarded with that I never would have had. Right? That you tried to look on the bright side of everything you could do. I think that there was a lot of room, the days seemed kind of long, right? And I think you had to find a way to fill them up. And I would say that you already mentioned that my love of music, I had a lot more time. I had no excuses to say I didn't have time to practice my piano or practice my guitar. I've been wanting to learn Portuguese and learn, so it was a kind of a chance for some reflective self-improvement time, And I guess that one of the things I learned was sometimes we're too busy, right? To even like, working out and eating better and things like that became, you don't really have any excuses, right? There was the time in the day to go ahead and do those things that you kind of always said you would do if you weren't so busy. Well, a lot of us weren't as busy. And I think that it's still a battle. Because I think sometimes we use the excuse of I'm too busy or I'm too tired or I've got too much on my plate or whatever, that, some of those things were removed and you're either going to do them or you're not, maybe in either scenario. And I think it gave me a chance to reflect on that. Still same, right? I would still have days where I didn't want to work out, and a couple of days would go by and 3 days would go by. Wait a minute, let me get back on track here or whatever, and pull my wife in there or one of the young kids to do some exercises with me to get me going or something like that. So, and I think certainly one other thing I wanted to touch on too was I really believe that this was, even though we weren't able to be in person with each other as much, I think that communication, having open forums of communication. I think we all learned a new way to do it with Zoom. And I think that there's still, it's still, again, it's not as personal, but it's still needed and beneficial and helpful. And I think I don't know, just from my perspective, a lot more calls with my family, my brothers and sisters and things like that than normal, right? Than I would have in normal times, lot more with my peers, with my coaching staff, with my bosses, lot more seems like communicative get-togethers during this time. And like I've already stated, I think they were much needed and we found a lot of value in them.
More check-ins, more time together, and it's good that you've had time to explore some of those hobbies of yours and learn Portuguese. That sounds very exciting. So going back to the NBA, I know it's easy to forget that for NBA players, a lot of them are actually in their early 20s, some are even in their teenage years. So I'm really curious how the pandemic has impacted the players and how you also support them from a mental health perspective too.
Yeah. So again, I would say that, these guys are young and sometimes you forget that, right? They're larger than life out there on that court or on that TV screen or in that championship parade or whatever it is where you see them and you realize that you look down and they're 22 years old or 21 years old or even younger in that case. And they certainly do have, they've been blessed with tremendous gifts, right? And opportunity and all those things, obviously. But they also, are a lot like me and you and other people. They have families and their families have issues and they have issues and they need support and help as well. So, we have a pretty good structure here, obviously at the Raptors with our sports science team. They've got every facet covered, and we have a sports psychologist. We also have avenues that they can go to talk to people. But from a personal standpoint, and again, I've already mentioned this on a couple, it seemed like we kept having one thing after another, the pandemic and then Black Lives Matter, which we'll talk about a little bit as well, I would imagine. Then we went into the bubble and then we can't, there's been, kind of one thing after another for us to deal with. And again, my biggest thing was to just check on them daily about how they were doing. And having these forums for them to share experience. It really came into play with the Black Lives Matter to let them pour out some of their own personal experiences with law enforcement growing up. And I think that's it, right? You need to get these things out. You need to have somebody to talk to. You get to know people you're working with a little better during some of these tough times. But when you get some of those things out, you feel better about yourself, and you know that people care because they listen. And they care because they get to know you better, and there's a little bit more kind of love and caring to go around.
It's good to hear too. And I think now, especially with everything that's going on in our world today too, and a lot of these different movements that are happening, I know we'll touch on that a little bit later too. I do have some more questions for you around that, but we can all have a bit more love and caring in our lives too. So Nick, being part of a professional sports team, you're also in the spotlight. And one of the challenges with COVID-19, particularly with young people, is the stigma that comes with testing positive for COVID-19. Players on your team have been really transparent about their own diagnosis, but I wonder what advice you have for any young people who may be feeling alone in their diagnosis right now.
Whew, that's a tough one, right? I think everybody's aware, and if you're not aware, we had a big outbreak on our team. Probably about a month ago now, or maybe a little longer ago. We had 6 coaches, 6 players that either had it or were within, some of the protocols of contact tracing, et cetera. And what I've found that really, I think we all need to get a little better hold on, and I'll just share my own personal experience is I think we all need to show a lot more empathy for people that get it. I'm a little bit disappointed, heartbroken maybe that people get it and people attack them about how'd you get it, or you were so careless, or is like the first things that come out of people's mouth. And you got to realize these people could be sick or could get very sick, and people are dying from this. And I think I don't know. That's my first thing I want to say. I don't know if it really relates to your question, but I sensed that with our team, that they felt that, I don't think maybe they were perfect, but I don't think they tried to do anything wrong either. We're following a lot of protocols really closely, and people don't really know how you get it sometimes. Just unfortunate, right? And I think we need to keep that in mind, right? And I think that, I don't know, to keep it to yourself would be difficult. I think reaching out to tell someone, so there's some support there. Many of the services provided here tonight, I'm sure somebody could share with that. I would think that first of all, from a physical health standpoint, letting people know you have it, so you're physically taken care of, and then obviously from a mental health standpoint, just to have somebody to get it out to is a positive.
Yeah, talking to other people is always, I think, really important, especially in times like this too. And experiencing a diagnosis, I'm sure it's very hard on people. And I think very well said from you too, and saying that the shame and the stigma and blaming, I don't think really helps anyone too. And so the more open we're able to be in having those conversations is so important. So just going back to what you had previously touched on, in addition to the pandemic, we've also witnessed a lot of other challenges over the past year, including the increase in violence towards underrepresented communities and Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Last spring, right before the NBA season restarted, George Floyd was murdered. More recently, there have been acts of violence against the Asian community. How do you support your team, and why is it important for you and the Raptors to use the platforms that you do have available?
Yeah, again, I think it's critical. A couple things, again, open platforms for sharing, right? Like I said before, I learned stuff about some of our players and heard some of their personal stories about their run-ins growing up, and it makes it real to you, right? It's right in front of you, these people that you care about and you're working with every day, and you don't just see it on the news as something far away. It's right here in your own kind of camp. So that was part of communication, listening to their ideas, right? Did they want to get involved and take ideas for betterment? Yes, they did. How can we support that? What help can we all give to do that, right? I won't use the name of some of our players, in their own hometowns are trying to get body cams on police officers and had campaigns for that. And how could we pitch in, and what could we do to help raise funds for it? And so I do think it was really important. And that was one of the things I stressed to the team, that I was going to stand there, arm in arm with them, kneel there, arm in arm with them, whatever it was that we were doing together. I think that their personal stories needed to be shared on our platform, right? I really, really stressed to them that we were given this platform of playing this game. And then after the game, somebody puts a microphone in front of your face and you don't have to answer any questions about the game if you don't want to. Turn the conversation to your hometown and some of the things you're working with. And we supported that and really tried to get behind some of those things like that. And that's, again, I thought it was better for us to play so that we could use that platform rather than to not play, and just go from there and continue to, again, give them the shoulder, arm around them, give them the platform, encourage them, be right there with them. I think the Raptors were one of the world's leaders, right? The way we approached it, give our players a ton of credit for speaking out. And to start this year, I always have these goals for the season, and usually they're mostly related to basketball. And at the top of my little pyramid this year was continue to be world leaders, for justice. And it's something we continue to strive and continue to talk about with our team.
I think that's awesome. I think that's so powerful to hear, that just how supportive you were and everyone else was on the team too, and really voicing a lot of the issues and challenges that are going on in our world today too, and giving people a space and a platform to talk about it, not only with their community and with other people on the team who may be going through similar experiences too, but also advocate for change. So thank you so much, Nick. I think we're going to turn it over to our panel now, and we also have another special surprise from you shortly, where in a little bit you're going to perform a song for us dedicated to hope and resilience, which I'm very excited to hear myself. So everyone joining us, please stay tuned for that. You definitely don't want to miss it. But now I'm going to turn it over to our panel and introduce everyone to 3 youth mental health advocates. They each work with Unsinkable, an organization that was started by Canadian Olympian mother, life partner, and business person, Silken Laumann. They are here to share stories of resilience and mental health across Canada. So please welcome Tyler Smith, Lacy Hartselle, and Zafir Zaman. We want this to be a conversation as much as possible as well, so I would invite everyone participating in the call today to also jump on yourself using the chat. So Tyler, I'm going to start with a few questions for you. Thank you for being here with us tonight. So many people may not realize, but yesterday was the 3-year anniversary of the Humboldt Broncos bus crash. Do you mind sharing your story with us and a bit more about your experience and more about why you're here today?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, thanks very much for having me and for having this event. I think it's pretty important. Obviously, with the recent lockdowns in Alberta, BC, and Ontario, a lot of people need it, but I guess to dumb it down, my story started on April 6, 2018. And I guess right from then, I mean, it kind of has been a journey. It's been quite an uphill climb, and it's been a lot of experiences and lessons that I never thought I would have to kind of deal with at my age. And I hope nobody really has to deal with it again. But to start off, I mean, I don't remember anything from the crash. I mean, there's no recollection of waking up at the scene, which I think is one of the bigger blessing in disguises in my life. I can't imagine what some of the guys are going through with the mental and emotional toll from, I mean, waking up or just kind of remembering bits and pieces from that day. But after about day 4 or 5, when I woke up, I kind of, you know, I woke up in a hospital bed. I woke up with Ron McLean, Don Cherry, Justin Trudeau, kind of coming into our room, and I had quite a bit of questions. And I mean, I was hooked up to 3 machines. I suffered, I think it was 9 injuries in total. Stroke being the worst, nerve damage, a couple broken ribs, you know, like things I could recover with. And I think that's ultimately what happened, was the athlete mindset kicked in and my recovery took precedent. And I mean, as soon as I got out of the hospital after day 13, it was straight to therapy. It was straight to, you know, making sure that my body was getting back to normal. And I even remember I couldn't golf that summer, and it was horrible. I mean, it was tough, and I know that's such a luxury for myself. And but just even like something like that, I mean, I wasn't able to get back to obviously doing what I love to do. And I mean, for that first little bit, it was a case of me just sitting on the couch and my poor mom and dad asking me every single day, "How are you doing? How are you doing?" And it was the same thing every day. It was, "I'm doing fine. I'm doing okay. Yeah, don't worry about me. I'm doing okay." And even when I kind of started to get back to hanging out with friends and doing all the things that I somewhat, you know, still love doing. I mean, I wasn't flourishing. I wasn't flourishing in the social settings that I used to thrive in. You know, I'm that very much that dressing room atmosphere person. I'm very much that person that, you know, wants to be with a group of people, wants to have laughs, wants to make memories. But I was at a point where I was just continually bottling everything up. And I mean, that was so comfortable for me because I mean, that's something I've done for pretty much all of my life up until that point. And I was getting so good at trying to distract myself with whatever it may be. And I mean, as soon as, I don't share this much, but I mean, as soon as I was able to drink for a 19-year-old kid that just went through this, I mean, let me tell you, like I took advantage of it. And my poor mom, again, I mean, I would come home and I wouldn't remember anything from the night before. And she'd be like, you gotta stop that. And it was just the case of, I wanted to forget. And I mean, I almost felt inclined to get back to my old self and, you know, just dismiss everything that was going on inside my mind. And I was so blind to it, but I was a believer in suffering in silence, because I know, you know, I didn't want this journey or marathon. You know, I wanted to be healed. I wanted to be recovered, just like that. You know, for a physical injury in hockey or whatever it may be, I mean, I would put in the work to get back. But for the mental side of things, I didn't want to put in the work. You know, I was just consuming myself with these unanswered questions. You know, why did this happen? Why us? You know, what do we do wrong? You know, and at that point in my life, I never really understood the magnitude of obviously courage, vulnerability, or honestly mental health in general. And I mean, it was tough, and it still is to this day. I mean, even with the 3-year anniversary yesterday. But one thing that's definitely kept I know I can't speak for everybody else, but for myself, I mean, seeing Drake wearing a Humboldt jersey, I mean, still seeing people recognize the day yesterday, you know, just seeing the love and support, you know, not even just Canada-wide, but just worldwide. I mean, it's honestly what's got me for myself through a lot of days. And I'm not saying I've hit my lowest of lows per se, but at the end of the day, to have that love and support constantly is something that I will never take for granted. And I mean, until I was approached by Unsinkable and started sharing my story, you know, I was starting to understand what courage and bravery meant, you know, and you know what, how much courage and bravery is vital in taking that first step in healing. And that's what always scared me. I mean, the shame and weakness that may be attached to me. Then I started to realize that everyone is fighting a battle that many know nothing about. And you should never judge a book by its cover. And so, yeah, to dumb it down, that's kind of my initial story, I guess. And I mean, I'm still definitely at an everyday process. I mean, we live in the world where it's good and bad days. So I guess getting to a place where you can embrace the good and the bad is something that I'm definitely trying to work on.
Well, Tyler, we're so happy to have you here with us today, and thank you for your honesty and sharing your story with us and the experience that you had there too, and really just being open and talking about some of those challenges that you experienced, not only physically, but also with your mental health too. So you touched on it a little bit, but I wonder if you can speak more to some of the things that really helped you to manage your mental health and well-being during those times when you were struggling.
Yeah, I mean, for the first bit, I definitely took a lot of things for granted, and I never really practiced the gratitude things. And but once I was able to, you know, start to get to a place where I was comfortable in my own skin again, and was comfortable with my own mind, I started to realize the value of connecting on a deeper level with friends and family. And I mean, Nick touched on it, you know, just constantly kind of saying, "How are you doing?" and listening, rather than, you know, I would go meet people and it'd be, "Hey, what's your name?" And we would exchange, and then I would just forget. You know, it'd be a simple, "I don't even know what that person just said." I mean, I was never present in conversations, and I mean, I always took those relationships, those conversations, and honestly, quite frankly, those memories for granted, until I started to really come to terms with the importance of open dialogue with the people you surround yourself with. And I mean, it really started to become evident in my relationships and my friendships that, you know, they were getting stronger. I mean, I know it's different for everybody, but at least, you know, finding what works for me was a big thing. For the first bit, I never really knew how to get away. You know, my piece of getting away was going out with my friends and trying to forget and trying to distract. And you know, I'm starting to come to terms with the difference between staying busy and distracting yourself. So, I mean, for me, it was golf. For me, it was going for a walk and listening to a podcast, listening to music. I know, like Nick said as well, I mean, music is a huge thing. And I've started to really, you know, just feel amazing when I listen to music. And I wish I was able to play instruments or whatever it may be, but I think it's really helped me immensely to clear my mind and to be able to go out for a walk and listen to a podcast with two random people that I don't know and hear their stories and, you know, sharing their perspectives and hopefully be able to put that in place in my life. And I guess lastly, being able to speak and share my story has been pretty vital in my healing journey as well. At the start, everybody always told me that sharing or writing is therapeutic. And I never, ever understood that, because I mean, why would I do that? My sharing would be getting up with a group of people and trying to make people laugh, you know, but now it was being able to connect with people through mine and their stories. And I mean, one thing I've definitely learned is you should never compare your story. I mean, obviously our story, our accident that day, it was Canada-wide. I mean, it shook the nation. And I mean, I understand that not everybody's story is going to do that, unfortunately. So, I mean, to be able to try and relate to them in any way is pretty important, I think, for both parties.
Definitely, and that's why we have you here with us today too, and to tell us more about your story, and I think to share our stories with people from across Canada too, because a lot of people are experiencing, especially during the pandemic, but through other things that are happening in people's lives too, challenges that affect our mental health. And so us being able to talk about it a bit more and feel comfortable connecting with people in our lives is so important. So thank you, Tyler. I also have a question for Lacy, a few questions for Lacy. So Lacy, thanks for joining us. Are you able to tell us a little bit more about your story?
Hi, yeah, thanks, Karleigh. I am an actor and a mental health advocate, kind of by default or out of necessity, I should say. I am diagnosed bipolar 2, and I have a father who's bipolar and also dealt with different addictions and different like family dynamics that were really tough growing up. But I kind of always knew, like as a younger kid, I was diagnosed with anxiety and ADD, ADHD, and OCD. So we always knew I was kind of the special kid. Like if anyone had the problems or was causing, drama or whatever, it was me. But a lot of that was the language I was told, was like I was, overreacting and it was a problem. So I've definitely learned as I've aged that the language we use and the language we're told is very important, especially the language you use towards yourself. So that's evolved as I've aged. And I received a proper diagnosis for bipolar when I was 21. And it was a mixed experience of emotions when I received that diagnosis. Part of it was terrifying because I really didn't know many people other than my dad. And I love my father, I really do, but a lot of pain had come from him. And, people hurt people. So it was from his own pain. And so I was kind of scared knowing like, what does my future look like? Will I be able to have a mom or be a mom? Will I be able to, continue acting and not allow my mental health to destroy my career, things like that. And the other part of me was excited to have an explanation and to have something saying, hey, we can dig into the research here and understand me better and help me and find people who can relate. So that's kind of what created my desire to be a mental health advocate. Is I wanted in that moment, and ever since, I've wanted to feel seen, heard. I want to know that other people can relate to me and that I'm not alone and that I'm validated in what I'm experiencing. So I just started talking about it, and in a quite loud way. It's kind of my personality, but it was like, you get to a point where you feel so low, so lost, that you're desperate to go, screw it, I'm just gonna put it all out there, because what's the alternative? I'm already struggling as much as I can feel. And so quite the opposite ended up happening. People started coming to me with, I can relate. And I love that everyone in their story they've shared has touched on empathy and connecting with others. And the beauty of empathy is that it's not necessarily connecting to the exact experience, it's connecting to the emotion experienced. And we all have experienced loss of some sort, grief of some sort, feeling all the anger, the frustration, the annoyance, the feeling just like in total despair. I mean, sadness, all of it. And so when I started just opening up, and I also have dealt with a lot of suicidal ideation. It's quite common for people with bipolar to reach kind of the lowest of lows when they hit their depressive episodes. And there were many times I wanted to just give up. Absolutely. And it would span from just not being able to stop meditating on thinking about it versus actually wanting to do it. And I'm so grateful I didn't, and that I've had the blessings of support through people's stories that I've heard along the way, which is why I keep talking, because I know that it makes a difference when all of us share our stories. We inspire change and we give people hope, because life is not meant to be easy. It's not meant to, as much as I wish it was all rainbows and butterflies, it's just not. We would not be the dimensional, compassionate, caring people we are if we had not been there too in the pit and been able to look at another and go, I see you and I feel you and I get it and it's gonna be okay. So yeah, that's a little bit of me.
Thanks for sharing that, Lacy. And you talked a little bit about getting your diagnosis and some of your experiences prior to getting a diagnosis, but I think it may be helpful to just talk a little bit more about, and for other people to learn, how did you decide or determine that you needed to reach out to get more help? For anyone else out there who may be struggling with their mental health, like what are some things that you were able to recognize in yourself to seek help from other people and reach out for more support?
Sure. Well, first, I want to acknowledge that I'm aware it's a luxury to have professional help. It is. And that's another reason I even have a podcast I created to share what I learn in my professional help to share with others, because I know it's not readily available to everyone, especially in a way that is your fit. Because sometimes it takes a while to find the right fit for you, of whether it's just even a talk therapist or a psychiatrist, which is what I needed and what people for the more extreme situations do need. And again, no shame in it. It's a beautiful experience, receiving help and being able to be to have someone explain to you what's going on in your head that made you feel different in a negative light, but to go, hey, here's, the explanation. So for me, I had received help along the way because I always had things that set me apart and made life a little more challenging for me behaviorally growing up. But I was always trying to manage it myself because I became quite the little performer, not just in acting, but in life. I was like, I need to prove myself. So I worked extra hard to sit at the front of every class and pay attention. Even though I had ADD, I was like, I will do my best. And I'm grateful that was on my, side, at least, to help. But the truth is, I came to many different places where it was just evident I needed help. And I think I always tell people who a lot of people have DM'd me, especially since creating This Is Temporary, my mental health podcast, asking if they need to get help. And I always say, if your instinct is there to ask, then I think you should honor that. If you're already curious and you feel, bold enough to ask another person, honor that instinct that's there, because your intuition is leading you towards help, which will unlock different parts of you and healing. For me, it was my major depressive episodes that I just didn't even feel like myself. Was the reason I first got help. And to be honest, again, like I said, it doesn't always work out perfectly the first time. The first person I actually encountered was a jerk. He was a terrible psychiatrist. He was mean to me, actually. He was misogynistic, and I cried, left the office, and I was like, I'm just going to figure this out on my own. And then I continued to struggle for another year and a half alone. And then I entered into some mixed episodes with bipolar people. Not everyone enters that. Each person's a little different, but it's where you're kind of getting a mix of the depressive and hypomanic at the same time. And I felt all over the place. I did not feel grounded at all. And it was out of desperation that I got paired with a new psychiatrist, and she is still my psychiatrist today. And I will always need help, and I'm okay with that. Like, I will always be talking to my therapist. Sometimes I won't need to as often, but I love that I've accepted that's an ongoing thing. I tell others the same. It's non-linear. There's no perfect way. You just have to figure out one day at a time what works for you and honor the voices that are leading you towards it.
And I just want to go back to something that you said, because I think you put it so beautifully in saying that if you're thinking to yourself and wondering if you need help, then you should reach out and get help from other people. I think you put it so beautifully there, and it's a really great
thank you
message to be giving to people.
Yeah, I think you have what you need within.
Yeah, if you're telling yourself, then listen to your voice within. Because you could probably benefit, and just like you said too, that it may not be the best fit with the first person that you reach out to, but to keep trying, and so there'll be others out there to support you. Well, thank you, Lacy. Zafir, I know you've been waiting, so I really want to jump over to ask you some questions now. Thanks for joining us. Can you start by sharing a bit more about your story with us?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised here in Toronto, Ontario. I'm currently in high school, and I'm a mentor, a motivational speaker, and an entrepreneur. My mentoring journey started in elementary school. Growing up and had no one to talk to because I was scared. And this continued all through elementary school, and I slowly became insecure about myself. The life-changing moment of mine was when I helped a student with his mental health in elementary school, despite having many problems of my own. And I saved a life with my words. And that was the moment I wanted to become a mentor and a motivational speaker so I can help many more people and youth all around the world with their mental health. Along this amazing journey, I was able to meet incredible people like my mentor, poet, and motivational speaker, Wally Shaw. And I have spoken at seminars for Ontario Council of Agencies Serving Immigrants, also known as OCASI, the Neighborhood Office, and many more organizations. I was also lucky to travel to other countries like Bangladesh and India, where I witnessed a lot of poverty. So I created my clothing brand, Globaline, which is a brand dedicated to help poverty-stricken areas all around the world. That's just a little bit about me.
Thanks, Zafir. So you mentioned it a little bit right now in talking about some of the work that you're doing in advocacy. So in what you are doing right now with young Canadians, many of them new to Canada, what are the most common challenges that you see or struggles that people are experiencing with their mental health?
Moving to a new country is hard. My parents immigrated to Canada a long time ago, and I heard their stories about the struggles that they had to go through. Especially with the youth, their mental health starts deteriorating, and that is when they fall into depression as they don't know anyone here. It's a new environment. They are scared to make new friends. They don't know where certain things are. And the most common challenge is when they leave their friends and family back home. And some have seen tragic incidents traumatizing them. And when they come to Canada, they carry that trauma with them, and the new environment makes things even worse. They might not know how to speak the language efficiently, and therefore they are scared to communicate. Without a strong support system, youth are affected in all sorts of ways, mainly mentally. Along with that, I have seen that social media creates a toxic environment at times, and that can affect mental health negatively as well. There are many challenges I see with the youth, and it is mainly because of the environment they're in. A bad environment will affect a person negatively, and a good environment will affect a person positively. We've seen it all along. So I encourage the youth all the time to be with the right people who genuinely care about you and like who ask you, hey, are you okay? Let me help you out, and all of that.
Thanks, Zafir. And I'm wondering if you can just tell us a little bit more about if you think that the pandemic has changed these challenges or added additional challenges for young people who may be going through these experiences.
The pandemic has added new mental challenges to many young people, including myself. Staying home and not being able to meet like my friends has had a huge toll on not only me, but multiple other youth. I mean, almost everyone, and their mental health had a huge toll. And being stuck at home, the pandemic has put a halt to opportunities, socializing, meeting with family, and even the loss of family and friends. Being enrolled to online school, the youth may not have the appropriate setting to attend online classes. The libraries, public places, like they are all closed and we don't have nowhere to go anymore. So that can be mentally draining. And I personally had to go through a lot being in high school and owning two businesses. COVID had a huge toll on my mental health. I lost opportunities, family members due to COVID, and so many young people, businesses have been affected in a similar way. And I know how it feels. And it has affected my mental health and many, many students, entrepreneurs, and businesses.
Thanks for talking about that a bit more and for sharing more about your story as well. Nick, I'm going to come back to you and ask you another question. So you're the head coach and an NBA champion of a professional basketball team. Many people watching may think those players all have it made and they don't experience the same mental health challenges that I have. What do you want everyone watching to know?
Well, I think that first of all, they've become who they are, and like I say, they kind of this basketball player that you see in public. is almost a completely different person than what they're dealing with on a daily basis. And most of them, well, let's say a good portion of them have come from absolutely nothing. Like just literally, I'd have conversations with Serge Ibaka, who played for us, and he would literally tell me 10 years ago, I was standing outside restaurants hoping someone would give me a scrap of food that they were bringing home, extra or something. And here he is today. So, and he's got family, and he's got that community that he grew up in, on his mind, that he's giving back to and taking care of, and all those kind of things. So, I mean, listen, they are incredibly blessed and incredible players, obviously, and people. But again, they've got relationship issues. They've got children that are having issues. They're like I said before, just like me and you, everybody's got something going on, and everybody's experienced some grief and good and bad days, like Tyler said, all those things are still going on.
We're all people. We all have good and bad days. I think that's important for us to remember. So now I'm going to turn things over to a little bit of an activity to kind of wrap up our conversation, and then open it up for everyone to ask any questions that they have in the chat. So as I've listened to everyone's incredible insights, while they're all unique, there's also a lot that we all have in common. And I think there's a powerful thing that we all can take away, and that's something that Nick just mentioned, and it's that we're not alone. So I promise, for those who are watching, if you share your thoughts and feelings with a trusted friend, parent, teacher, doctor, as human beings, we've all experienced pain, loss, anxiety, fear, and disappointment. Those are all shared experiences that we have. And Nick just mentioned, even as an NBA coach, as an NBA player, a lot of people are experiencing all these same emotions too. And our emotions and experiences are greatly impacted by the way that we process information. So for many people over the past year, we may not have expected the pandemic to go on for more than a few months, let alone more than a year. And we can all look at everything we've had to put on hold, going to movies with friends, traveling, eating a meal with grandparents, graduation ceremonies. I'm sure the list goes on. Or we can imagine ourselves in a time after the pandemic and think about our strengths and everything that we've gained from our experience. So as a part of our event today, I've asked all of our guests here to help us with an exercise. And everyone watching at home can also try this later on tonight, over the next few days too. And when you have a quiet moment, close your eyes and imagine yourself somewhere safe after the pandemic has ended. Stay in that moment for a couple of minutes, breathe. As you begin to open your eyes, take time to write a letter or a few notes to yourself from your future self. What would your future self want you to know right now? So very quickly, if we can just go around, Lacy, I'm going to start with you and just ask you, what's resonating with you when you look back at your letter to yourself?
Yeah, I love this exercise. Whether you're writing to your younger self, older self, from your older self, it's always good for perspective. But what really stood out to me were a few things in my note. One of them was my future self affirming myself now of how proud she is of me for working as hard as I've worked, for continuing on. I always tell people that it's a good thing to struggle. Like when I used to call my therapist with weekly sessions, I'd be like, oh, I'm struggling. And he'd say, I'm proud of you, because that means that you're putting up your best fight against what's in front of you. You're not giving up. And I was like, you're right. So, yeah, we've all struggled through this together, and I'm proud of all of us. And it's a genuine, like, purpose-driven gratitude, I think, too, that I found when reflecting and talking to myself from my future self, which is like, you can feel in love with life right here where you are. It's kind of like, again, many of you have mentioned, it's in focusing on the people. Connecting with the people. That's another thing I brought to my attention, was the quality time we have right now is precious, and it's fleeting. The present moment just passed, and it's right now, and then it's passing again, so to really lean into the present moment, to call up your grandmother, call up your friend you haven't talked to in a while, Zoom with someone, but find quality conversation and quality time, because it's life altering, it spreads good energy from you to them, and it's a memory, and it's something to not be taken for granted. So yeah, I think also I told myself, you're gonna be okay. Good things are ahead. There's a Victor Hugo quote that I actually really like. I wanted to read. It's quick. It says, Victor Hugo calls the future by several names. For the weak, it's impossible. For the faint-hearted, it is the unknown. But for the valiant, it is ideal. And I'm trying to focus on each day saying the future is ideal. It's exciting. And, now that I know nothing will ever be perfect, but as time goes by, moments like this are something that we can look back on and see as the growth and the uncomfortable time that shaped us into who we are. So it's like when we start to feel little moments of safety again, as the remnants of this pandemic are still sorting itself out, we can find the excitement for the future and the unknown that could be good, and step into that hope and continue to practice it till we feel it, because it's not always going to be there, and that's okay. All the feelings are welcome.
I've heard some people say during COVID that in every crisis there's a lesson. And so I like how you put it too. The future is ideal, stay in the moment, be proud of yourself. I think they're all really good messages for us to remember. So Zafir, I'd like to turn it over to you now. Is there anything that you can share with us about what stood out to you in your letter?
Absolutely. So my letter is about the pandemic and how it has installed fear within us. And I wrote a little paragraph, and so here it is. COVID-19 has made many of us very fragile. We lost opportunities, friends, family members, and that took a huge toll on us. But now it's time to get back. We need to pick ourselves up, go hunt down new opportunities, make new friends, and most importantly, take care of our mental health. It's time to socialize in person. Tell your close ones about your problems, whenever you need to seek help, because there's no need to be scared or shy. We're all in this together. It may feel like our minds have given up, but that doesn't mean you will give up. You are strong enough to keep going. Prove that to no one but yourself. So that little paragraph is what I wrote. Yeah.
Thank you, Zafir. What a great message there. And Tyler, if you can wrap things up for us and highlight anything that you wrote yourself in your letter.
Yeah, rock on, Lacy and Zafir. That was awesome. I think with me, I saw a quote one time and it said, mental health isn't a battle to be won. It's a journey to continue walking. And I think that's just resonated with me throughout so much. I mean, obviously my perspective has changed immensely over not just this past year, but the past 3 years. And I think just being able to just be present in your moments and embrace, like I said, embrace the good and bad. And also just remember that it's not about the result. It's about being able to get out of bed. It's about being able to take that next step forward. It's about being able to realize that in seeking that peace, like the journey is as important as the result. And it is about just, day by day. And I mean, I know it feels like right now there's not a light at the end of the tunnel, but I'll quickly share something that my therapist said one time. And she said, your story and your spotlight is the end of other people's tunnels. It is that light. And that's something that was so profound, because I mean, your story, your words can be that light for other people. So just be able to realize that, I think is super important in the future, obviously.
So I know we had wanted to leave some time for discussion with everyone else who is attending today. I know we got some great comments in our chat, so thank you everyone for adding on to the discussion. So I think we may have just a little bit of time. I want to pass over one question to Lacy and Zafir and Tyler. And I think something maybe that we could end on today that I think may be important for a lot of people who are joining us here to hear more about. And that's, do you have any advice for parents, for caregivers on how they can be helpful for any young people who may be struggling right now?
Who wants to take that?
Lacy,
go ahead.
Real quick, the first thing that comes to mind and that I think is always important is to just validate their feelings first. If someone comes to you in need of help, hear them out, listen, see them, sit with them, and validate their feelings, and trust, like, whatever direction you need to point yourself in, after that. It's always good to get a professional opinion. I mean, we only know so much. And I just think that validated emotions, especially developmentally for people, youth, it's so important, because to know that they're seen is helping to develop their sense of self, and to know that they can then trust themselves when they're leaning in and asking for help, that they did the right thing. And it reinforces that, bone in their body to do that again throughout life as they grow up. So yeah. What were you going to say, Tyler?
No, I think I was kind of going to touch on that as well. I think just the whole listening aspect of it. I mean, obviously I touched on how, there's shame attached and you think there is weakness, but I mean, even with my friends, I mean, I can sit around a fire, and if I have a song that comes on that triggers and I start bawling my eyes out, it's not a case of they're going to all scram and be like, we're out of here. Like, it's a case of they're going to sit there, they're going to get closer to me, and they're just going to listen. It's not a case of that they need to force me into this or force me into the next step, or it's honestly just being there. And I think that goes so, it's hard because it's so profound to ever kind of try and really relate to a story. And, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's so important to just listen and be there. And I mean, I think it's as simple as that. And I know I touched on it as well, but yeah, it's just about helping them take that next step. And I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Thanks, Tyler. Zafir, is there anything else that you want to add in quickly?
Lacy and Tyler got it. I mean, the key to helping someone is listening. All you have to do is listen, let them talk. And all you do is listen. And when they're done, you then try to create a conversation. That's the key to helping anyone with their mental health. Just listen.
Yeah, you may not have to have all the right answers, but just be there and just listen. I think that's a great message for us to end today. So we did go a little bit over, but thank you for all sticking with us and for the great discussion that we were able to have today. I really want to thank our youth panel, Tyler, Lacy, Zafir, for sharing their incredible stories and insights. We also definitely want to thank Nick Nurse for joining us. And as we close our event today, I want to remind everyone that you are not alone. And the next day, you will receive a follow-up email with resources available to all Canadians. I also really hope that this conversation will help you think of ways that you can support your own mental health or the mental health of other people in your lives, and feel more comfortable to reach out to others for more support when you need it. So thank you again for everyone who joined us today, for listening in to our conversation, and for our panelists, thank you for joining us tonight, and stay well, everyone.